Good afternoon. Welcome to Jumpstart's monthly expert-led webinar, today with Carrie Aguilar from Innovate Growth Partners on the 6 steps to sales success. I'm Lauren Smith-Petta, and I serve as Jumpstart's Director of Education. Jumpstart offers this webinar series on a different topic every month, along with a variety of other educational programs and events. Visit our website to explore some of our other educational opportunities for small businesses and tech companies. Before I introduce Carrie today, a few housekeeping items. This presentation session will be 60 to 90 minutes with time set aside for Q&A. In your toolbar, you should be able to see an important communication tool at your disposal today, the chat. Carrie will ask you to participate throughout, so please place your comments there or raise your hand if you have a comment you'd like to make verbally, and I will unmute you. You're also welcome to introduce yourself at any time in the chat. At the end of today's session and in a follow-up email, you'll receive a brief survey. I know we all have survey fatigue, but we appreciate your feedback. It allows us to continue to bring in experts and entrepreneurs to teach valuable lessons like today. All right, without further ado, a proud Clevelander, Carrie Aguilar has spent the last 15 years building a successful sales enablement career, starting as a top salesperson at Yelp and evolving into leadership positions at various high-growth tech startups. Most recently, she served as head of sales training and enablement at DoorDash, where she worked as part of the initial sales strategy team to grow it from Series C through post-IPO. She currently helps startups do the same through her business Innovate Growth Partners that specializes in helping founders reach their next growth milestone through sales strategy, process creation, and enablement. I am delighted to have Carrie here today to share some sales tips. Welcome, Carrie.
Hello. Thanks, Lauren. Oh, now she's gone too. This is great. Okay, well, I'm so glad that you guys are here today. Before we get started, if you guys want to, throughout the time, I will ask if you have questions. Please, by all means, please raise your hand and or jump in the chat and ask questions. I'm all about two-way communication, even though I can't see your beautiful faces. So I just get to stare at mine. Yay. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday. I am going to start sharing the screen now, which I'm assuming, Lauren, can you see my screen? Just say yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so first of all, let's see. Okay, a little bit about me. First of all, I can't get rid of this picture. I'm sorry. It was taken 8 years ago, right before I had my child. It's like the best picture ever taken of me, and I just refuse to let it go. So if it's false advertising, I apologize. But but there it is. Like Lauren said in my bio, so I am a very proud Clevelander. I love Cleveland and all things Midwest. I spent the last 15 years or so actually on the West Coast, working in high growth tech startups. I started at Yelp in sales and then moved into management and training. I then transitioned to an ed tech company and actually helped them go IPO, where I was head of sales training and enablement there. And then for the last 6 years was head of sales training and enablement at DoorDash, where I actually joined as the second person in sales strategy back in 2018. And I joined right after, or actually right before we raised our Series C, and then exited well after we IPO'd. We IPO'd, I think, in December of 2020, and I left in December 2023. Let's see. I already, Lauren already said my mission and what my business does. I always like to set the tone a little bit. I am really good at sales, and that's why I'm very excited to share this information with you all. So I started my career in sales. I have actually had over 100,000 open calls. So this is before AI was trying to make SDRs' lives easier. I've actually physically dialed a phone over 100,000 times. I've set over I've had over 10,000 DM conversations. I've set over 4,000 appointments, and I've actually had over $1.5 million in sales. This was all through the beginning of my career when I was at Yelp with a $4,500 average deal size. So even though 1.5 million for you guys who do enterprise sales doesn't seem like a lot, trust me, it was a lot, when your average deal size was pretty small. And this is just all to say, this is the reason why I am speaking to you today. I spent a lot of time selling, and then I spent a lot of time building sales organizations and teaching other people how to sell. So, what I want to do is I want to first just center ourselves. We are going to talk about selling. I work with business owners every day who are totally obsessed with their product. They are obsessed with the problem they're trying to solve, which is really exciting. But they may not always feel very comfortable in a sales setting. So what I like to do is I encourage, first of all, you have to really start to love selling. You start by selling yourself, and then you transition to selling your vision and then your product, whether you're raising money or you're actually selling your product. But what I would just say is some of the things that I always tell business owners is I encourage business owners to physically, so cheesy, I don't like doing like administrative work like taxes and stuff. So I actually have my Cleveland Guardians hat to do taxes. So that's what I like to do is I always encourage business owners, like, if you have a problem with selling, that's fine. We're going to put on the sales hat. So for the next hour or so, please like just put on your sales cap and grab something, I mean, I know you guys are all on your computers, but I'm all about writing actually hard notes. If you guys are into writing hard notes, grab something to write with, and we'll get started. So I want to talk a little bit about, before we get into the nitty gritty, the importance of sales. I know that you guys are all in the startup ecosystem. You may have wanted to raise capital. You may be raising capital. You may have already raised capital. Congratulations. I just want to double click on the importance of selling your product. So a couple of things to anchor on. Finding product market fit, what we find is takes 3 times longer than most founders estimate. So let's say that you have this great product and you are so sure that the aeronautics industry needs it. And then you go to that industry and realize they actually have the perfect solution and it's not needed. A lot of pivots take time, and those pivots are you understand those pivots when you're actually having conversations with your potential clients and trying to sell your product. A typical VC, this is slightly heartbreaking, but a typical VC may meet with 400 businesses a year and only invests in 2 to 3. So this is huge. So if you're looking to have revenue, if you're looking to grow revenue, that revenue sometimes isn't just, increasing your runway by getting investment. It's who's my next customer, and what does my next customer look like? And then 40% or nearly 40% of all businesses fail due to exhausting their runway and inability to raise more. So I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but I am trying to say that what I'm going to outline today is incredibly important. And I would highly recommend taking some notes and actually implementing it on your next sales call. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to talk you through email drips. I'm not going to tell you, how to get the person that you want to reply to you on LinkedIn. This is not that conversation. What we're doing is we are having a conversation specifically about when you are meeting with someone or having a sales conversation, whether it's selling your product or let's say that a part of your product life cycle is building partnerships. This is also a great structure for a partnership conversation. And this isn't a sales methodology. This is just creating a framework around a sales process. So the first one is building rapport. The second is setting agenda. The third is qualifying discovery. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to dive into each of these over the course of the next few minutes. Before I get actually started, does anyone have any questions?
We do have a hand up, Carrie. So Sarah,
Yes.
I'm gonna unmute you or
Oh,
allow you to
Sarah,
talk.
yay. And Sarah, if you want to go on camera, that would be amazing because then I wouldn't feel so lonely. But it's okay if you don't. I like totally
Well, I
understand.
just went down to the kitchen, but
No, totally.
the chat and the Q&A are both disabled, so we can't engage at all. And that's
Oh,
yep.
oh, hey, Lauren, can
Oops,
we?
I'm on it.
Thanks. Wait, was that it?
There we
Do you
go.
have another question, Sarah?
So, well, I can because this is what I'm exactly struggling with. So I am so
Cool.
excited with this model that you're already showing here. Because yeah, it's that connection, and I find myself I have to do a double sale because I am supporting learning for customer success and performance,
Okay.
which most people don't get, that you
Okay.
actually have to do that on the course side. So that is really just planting my seed.
Okay. That makes sense. Cool. Well, thank you. Wait. There's a now show chat.
Okay, I'm
Here.
gonna allow Essence to speak.
Hi, Essence.
Hi. Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. I can hear you. You're
Oh,
on with
okay.
Carrie.
Okay.
This
I
is a
was
radio station
wondering,
now.
I was wondering if this is only for product-based businesses or if this could also be taken and used for service-based businesses as well.
Oh, absolutely. So just to give you an idea, I have a service-based business. I do sales strategy and I use this on all of my calls.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions, Lauren?
I don't see any.
Okay, cool. So what we're going to do, thank you guys for the questions. It actually got me to slow down a little bit. And when you stare at yourself giving a presentation, well, I'm sure some of you guys have done this a lot, so I don't need to go into any more detail. Okay, so we're going to start with the first one. This sounds really silly, but I will just say, wait. Okay, building rapport. This is incredibly important. I always say it's building trust before trust is built. It doesn't need to be long. I always go for some sort of laugh or reaction. And I will actually say last week I went to Ohio VC Fest. And it was wonderful, by the way, Jumpstart, thank you. And one of the startups that I saw, which was awesome, a lot of them one of them actually they wore suits and then they had like very brightly colored sneakers. And the sneakers was like the easiest thing to talk about. And I love that because it was a great piece of rapport building. It was an easy thing to talk about. So I would highly recommend, like, whatever your thing is, lean into your thing. So for example, I always like to make people feel incredibly, I will like make fun of myself pretty easily. So like when I when I jumped on with Lauren before, I spent like 5 minutes talking about how I am allergic to cinnamon. And this morning I had this warm chai that had cinnamon in it. And what it is doing was, and by the way, what that does is it turns me bright red, which is like not the best thing when you're doing a webinar for people to be like bright red. Thankfully, I was able to drink enough water and I don't have tons of redness in my face, but that's what happens. Anyways, that's my way of building rapport with people is I just have something where a nugget that I can share with them that puts them at ease and puts myself at ease. I would highly recommend if this doesn't come naturally to you, figuring something out. So I have a sister who actually went to the Naval Academy, and you guys don't know me, but I'm like the opposite of someone who would go to the Naval Academy. She is an engineer. She's a total badass. She's awesome. I am awesome as well, but in different ways. And she read a networking book. Again, I'm not sure that I would read a networking book because I love networking naturally. But one of the things that the networking book told her was that she should wear something that was out of the ordinary so that someone could approach her and talk to her about it and make it would be like a mutual, like, oh, another talking point. So she wears they have like big Naval Academy rings that she will wear to like a networking event. But the whole point is you want to make sure that you take a little bit of time to create comfort in a sales conversation. Okay. Any questions here? Lauren, I don't know. The chat says 11, but is that just...
No, I'm monitoring the chat and we have no questions right now.
Okay, cool. I love that. And I love Sarah. I just saw Sarah's thing. Yes. So your accent. Yes, perfect. Okay. Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay, so step 1 is rapport. Don't miss it. In fact, make sure you build the rapport. Okay. Number 2 is setting an agenda. Okay, so there are 3 parts of an agenda conversation, or it's just like a sentence. It is what I want to do is during this time. So if I was talking to Sarah, I would say, Sarah, it's so awesome. We would build rapport. She would talk about her last name in her accent. I would laugh. I'd say, haha. I'm not like, I'm from Cleveland, but I don't say Cleveland like a lot of Clevelanders do. We would giggle for like, 20 seconds. And then I would say something like, Sarah, I just want to say, so great meeting with you today. What I want to get out of this conversation, what I want to do is I want to learn about you, your business, and your processes. Then what I want to do is I want to tell you about Innovate Growth Partners, what we do, and how we can help with the problems that you're having. And then if it makes sense, we're going to move forward with either a commitment or another meeting or fill in the blank. So it's 3 parts. And basically what it does is it gives you structure for your entire call. Okay. It also mimics the rest of the call. So learn about you this is like the qualify and discovery. We're going to tell you about us, like our product. That's the product knowledge. And then I'm going to make a recommendation, or we're going to move forward. That's recommendations, and then overcome. So it gives you the framework, or gives you kind of the map for the rest of the call, but it's super simple, and it lets them know that this is a sales call, that you're going to be asking them questions, and that they're going to be able to ask you questions a little later in the call. I would say I said this is the most important part of the conversation. It really is. This gives you control. This enables you to ask the questions. This lays out the framework for the rest of the call. Are there any questions about the agenda? What I would highly recommend, do you share it as a slide? I talk it. I just talk it out. And I'll go into, so Sarah asked a question, said, do you share it as a slide or talk it out? So I talk it out. It's a very simple thing. So there are 3 parts. I want to learn about your business. I want to teach you all about ours and how we can help, and then move forward if it makes sense. And depending on your business, like if you guys do one call closes, that's great. You can say, if it makes sense, I'll send over an agreement. We can get started. If that's not it, and you say, well, if it makes sense, we set up a follow-up call. The point is that they want to know, and you want them to know, that the conversation will move forward in some way after this call. Okay. So that's the agenda. During this, I would say, like during this time, my challenge to you is sometime today, write out this your three pieces, whatever three pieces, the learn about you, tell you about us, buy a thing, whatever comes naturally to you, whatever words come out of your mouth naturally, use those and just have that in every single conversation. Okay. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about discovery or qualifying. I would just say, if you guys have been in sales at all, or if you have a business and you haven't purchased at least a couple books on sales, I mean, there are tons of ways to do discovery. So this training is not going to tell you exactly how to do your discovery. What it is going to do is it is going to tell you an approach to do a successful discovery. Okay. So in my discovery, I have two different types of questions. I have qualitative questions, and then I have tactical questions. So the qualitative questions are going to be more the feelings-based questions. And this is, if you haven't heard of Simon Sinek, he did, what put him on the map was a 2009 TED talk that he did called Start With Why. I would highly recommend. It's an 18-minute listen, but it changed the way that I approach my conversations. It is incredible. And I was not a huge Simon Sinek fan for a really long time, but it's incredible. Yes, Sarah, he talks about the golden circle, but it's basically like your job in the discovery is to get to their why. And your client's why will either be their own personal reason. So it could be like inside the reason why they would want to buy your software or would want to use your service, or it could be more esoteric, like from the business perspective. Like the business is hemorrhaging money. We need a better way to have efficient spending, and we need a new procurement tool. That procurement tool, and so your job is to be able to find out what that is. Oh yeah, Simon Sinek, Sinek. So the first portion is going to be the qualitative questions. Those are going to be more feelings based. Okay. And I always say, like, think like an onion, you're going to peel back layers. And think about it like this. If you have a conversation with someone, think about a loved one, think about anything. Like, I will use an example. I have an 8-year-old. Before we eat every night, we do these things called prompts. And prompts are basically just like, let's think of things to talk about. And really it's just because we eat very quickly. So we're trying to eat more slowly. So that's why we talk about prompts. But the prompt that we had last night was rate your day 1 to 10. Well, that's a pretty like tactical, or it's like, it's a 1 to 10 question, but she said 5. And I was like, oh, 5, like that sounds pretty bad to me. And I said, well, why was it a 5? Well, most days are kind of a 5, right, Mom? And I was like, Mom, I don't know. I feel like I have pretty good days. And so like after the conversation, after asking why, after digging in, I realized that 5 is actually like, she had a pretty good day, like a good day. She just is very like, she just judges herself very harshly. But the whole point is that when you have a conversation with someone, they're not going to immediately tell you everything. So you're going to have to peel it back with layers. It's the same thing, like if any of you guys have ever gone to therapy, like you don't start crying in like the minute 1 of the moment you meet this therapist. You start crying at like minute 52 after you've had a 52-minute conversation, right? And then you're like, oh, the session is over. I have to wait till next week. But again, it's onions. So you have these qualitative questions, and what you're going to do is, or what I want you to do, and that's why I have the exercise. You don't have to do it right now, but think of what those qualitative questions are. It should be a pretty easy approach to like 3 to 4 questions to get them to where you want them to be, so that you can present your product, your solution, your fill in the blank. Okay. So those are the qualitative. The tactical is these are questions that you probably already know the answer to. So before we go forward, I'm just interested, how many employees do you have? Have you ever worked with, I actually prepped this for an employee experience software that I work with. So have you ever worked with an employee experience consultant before? These questions are super tactical. They're yes or no questions. But what they do is they make it really easy for them to answer the question and they don't have to think about it. And what they're doing is they're actually seeing basically your product, your solution, your approach, your service as the solution just by answering these easy questions. Oh, great. So you have 50 employees. Perfect. That sounds great. And you're not going to tell them, you're not going to sell them on the 50 employees. You're just going to say, perfect. That's great. Move on to the next one. What about a budget? Have you guys allocated a budget for this? Yes, no, maybe so. That's super helpful for you to understand because it could be that they actually have a budget set aside for this type of service, or they haven't, in which case you want to dig in. Okay, so tell me exactly, you're into this question, or sorry, you're into this conversation. Why exactly are you into this conversation even without an allocated budget? Oh, okay, you can create one. Okay, asking the question, if I show you something of value, is this something that you could create going forward? Okay, Sarah asked, qualitative then tactical, is that by design to get them saying yes mindset? Yes. Or just the way you do it? Yes, it's the mindset. It's the yes mindset from the qualitative to the tactical. Because if you start with the tactical, then they're like, why are they asking these questions? They could just look it up. Like this isn't super helpful. But if you start with the qualitative and you get to know them, you get to know their business, you get to know their process, you get to know their product, you get to their why, then you ask super simple questions where they don't really have to think about it. And all they have to do is think, okay, great. Like they can really help. Even though I'm not saying anything like I can really help, I'm just answering, I'm just hearing it. Thank you. Okay. So the qualitative, tactical, and then after the discovery, we're going to go into product knowledge. So what I do is I build a bridge, and this is my bridge, and you can tell that this is exactly my words because this is how I speak. Awesome. I appreciate that background. That was super helpful. The good news is you kind of just described to me exactly what we do as a company. Okay. I'm going to mirror back. So awesome. Like that was great information, super helpful. Good news is I can help you. We can help you. That's exactly what we do. Okay. I can't see you guys. Do a lot of you guys have, I can't ask this question. If you guys have decks that you use in a sales capacity, my number one piece of feedback would be do not send them anything, share your screen, do not do anything that has to do with your business until the product knowledge piece. Okay. Have a pitch deck or have a sales deck that has maybe 4 to 6 slides on it. And during your conversation, what you're going to do is you're going to basically have a 4 to 6 slide deck, and then you might have 4 slides afterwards that you interchange depending on the types of business they are. So, for example, what you find, so these example questions, in this, to paint the picture of this example, this is an employee engagement software. And really what the founder found was that, oh, that's funny. The founder found was that there are only 4 reasons why businesses would actually buy the software. Number 1 is the HR person really wants and like is really driven. It's an ego type of purchase where they really want to have a certification that says that we have an incredible like our employees have a wonderful experience and we want to have that certification. The second is they had some sort of PR nightmare that created some sort of like swirl around getting DEI or getting employee experience under control. The third is Someone is retiring and they want to be able to, on the way out, leave a legacy. And then the fourth was, let's just say that there's three. So using this example, depending on this, in her pitch deck or in her sales deck, she's going to include, like, especially her certification process, in the one where the HR person has the big ego and wants to be able to tell everyone in, in their community, vertical, etc., that they are, DEI certified. Like, that's what the driver is. And what's great is that this is what's going to anchor. That's how she's going to anchor her product knowledge conversation on. She's going to say, perfect. What we have is a certification process. What we're going to do is we're going to be able to actually have you be able to show exactly the improvement that you've done and the certification that you have.
Hey, Carrie.
But yeah, sorry.
Sorry, we have a really good question that came in the chat, and maybe you're going to get to this. But Robert said, this is great info once you're in the door. However, the hardest part is getting a sales lead to meet with you. How do you secure those appointments?
Yeah, can we table that and we can talk about that after?
Yep.
Just because I totally understand this is more on like the conversation side, but we can talk about that. Robert or Bob or Rob. I don't know how you could buy. Anyways. But the point is that you're going to establish 3 to 4 use cases. Like, what are the reasons? What are the drivers behind people purchasing your product, purchasing your service, purchasing your software, whatever it is? And then having that as a component that you can add into the sales deck. You do not want them looking at your demo. You do not want them looking at your slides until you want them looking at your slides, looking at your demo. That's why I always have a face-to-face or even like Zoom conversation, straight face to straight face, discovery. I do building rapport, I do agenda and discovery face to face. Then I say, great, what I'm going to do is actually share my screen and I can show you a little bit more about Innovate Growth Partners. I can share you a little bit more about your business. This is incredibly important. What I would say is that you run the risk of explaining the reasons why you love your business, and none of the reasons why they're going to buy your business if you do not listen to them well. So they could really only care about 30% of what you have built. And if you don't listen to them, and if you don't cater this conversation to them, then you're going to lose out because you're going to show them the 70% they don't care about and not the 30% that they do. So I would just say, like, get really good at plugging in, okay, this is what they care about. So then in the product knowledge piece, I'm going to show them this, this, and this. Any questions about this? No. Okay. The other piece that I wanted to outline for here is I always send, so ideally you talk to the decision maker, you talk to the person who makes the decision. In the cases that you don't, that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. And maybe that's the third portion of your agenda, is moving the conversation forward. I always make a copy of whatever deck that I'm using, and I make a copy of the deck, and then I send the product knowledge deck over to them as kind of a recap, and so that they have the information at their fingertips that they can, if they needed to, they can send it around as a basis for the next conversation that we have. But just to be clear, that next conversation, let's say that you're having a conversation with a VP, and really the person who needs to be 100% bought in is the CRO. Well, you're going to actually do exactly this conversation with the CRO. You're going to go back and you're going to build rapport. You're going to set an agenda. You're going to qualify. You're going to really understand why they would be into your product, because it might be different. But they're going to have a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of basis for your product. And then they might have other questions that you can dig in and be like, okay, yeah, absolutely. So we actually have that portion is an add-on that, you know, Carrie cared about. So I wanted to show her that. However, it sounds like you really care about our metric system, in which case, why don't I show you the dashboard? So that's one piece. The other piece of advice I would give you is if you do not have a test environment that works really well, and if you are not 100% confident in a product that you're showing someone, please do not show them your product. Please do not demo your product if a demo isn't ready, because I cannot tell you. So I was in charge of procuring millions of dollars worth of tools at DoorDash, and I cannot tell you how many tools I said no to just because the demo didn't land. Because why in the world would you be showing me a like cruddy demo, expecting me to get excited about it? And just by saying, oh, well, typically this works. Yeah, I'm not interested in that. Like, it needs to work, especially if I'm not specifically asking for a demo. Okay. Any questions about that? No. Okay. Okay. Now, thanks, Sarah. Now let's move on to recommendation. So based on what we discussed, this is my recommendation to move forward. So Sarah, based on what we discussed, it sounds like you guys really need sales strategy help. So what I'd like to do is move forward with a 6-month retainer. What that looks like is this, and this. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to be upfront about it, and I'm going to provide some sort of something to look at. So I might actually have it in my sales deck. I might actually have the pricing on the last page. But the whole piece is that I want it to be super simple. Okay. You want it to be super simple, and you want to link it to the value. You want to be able to say, based on your goals, based on what you told me. And you don't want to say like, just based on what you told me. You're going to say, based on your goal, you want to raise a Series B by end of 2026. To be able to do that, you need to be able to hit 2.7 million in revenue. For you to be able to do that, you need to build out a mid-market team, an enterprise team, and an SDR team. What I'm going to do is help you build all three of those things, right? So it's very concrete, it's very tactical, and they know exactly what they're getting for what you're providing. But you're going to link it to their goal. You're going to also link it to their qualitative pieces. So I know that you are retiring. You're hanging up your hat, so to speak, at the end of May. Congratulations. I'm very jealous. I'd love to be able to do the same. What I'd love to do is get you set up so that what we can do is we can set a standard for employee experience at the United Way of Cleveland. Or fill in the blank. I'm just like making stuff up at this point. Yes, keep it super simple. And then when it comes to overcoming objections, so over time, you are going to get so good at this. I love objections. I always assume there are objections. So I say, what questions do you have for me? And then what I would say is don't assume cost is going to be an objection. So especially if you have a product that is pretty pricey, even that, you've done the research, you know that your product is actually on the online with what it should be. So don't assume that it's the cost. Dig in and understand what really is it. Is it a timeline thing? Is it that you actually need to get the buy-in of someone else and you didn't ask that question in the beginning? You want to make sure that you are digging in, and you know that if it's not closing on this call, or if you don't have a firm resolution on this call, you understand what those next steps are. And then the most important takeaway here is that you must create next steps on every single call. So the best time to set a follow-up call is when you are in the call itself. It's not, a week later when you send them an email, they're never going to respond to you. It's you want to make sure that you are clearly defining, okay, great. It sounds like we should actually be talking in the middle of Q4 as opposed to September 25th. Let's look at the calendar for November, 10th. What does that look like for you? Don't worry about, I will remind you, don't worry about that. I just want to get on your calendars because calendars fill up. Frankly, mine does too. So you must make sure that you have next steps outlined. Make sure that if those next steps are another conversation, if they're a follow-up, if it's, I'm going to send you over a recap email, and that recap email goes to their customer experience director. And then next step is getting the customer experience director, the sales director, and the CRO on a call. Great. What time next Wednesday would work? And then just keep shortening the timeline. Always keep shortening the timeline. Be surprised, ask them why. Don't be a jerk about it, but just, you want to make sure that you're shortening timelines when you can. And then you want to absolutely make sure that you're not wasting these conversations and wasting any opportunities. So you always want to have a next step outlined. And then do what you say you're going to do. So if you say that you're going to call at 3 p.m. next Wednesday, call them at 3 p.m. next Wednesday. I can't tell you how many times I sold Yelp ads. No business owner or restaurant owner loves Yelp because they have that random 1-star review of that one bad day that they had, and it lives on their Yelp listing for eternity. And I got, chewed out by that all the time. But what I did was I said, okay, great. Well, I want to get this set up because I know that you have a great reputation. Besides that, let's get the great reputation in front of people. I'll give you a call next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Will you pick up? And they say yes. They never do. I call them at 3 p.m. I giggle. I say, hey, it's Carrie. Surprise, surprise. And then you know what they do is they call me back 3 weeks later, or they call me a month later. I can't tell you how many times I closed a deal just by them saying like, thanks for calling me. I didn't mean to be a jerk. I was busy. Let's get started. But the point is you follow through. You hold yourself accountable to that in whatever way, whether it's GCal, whether it's the notes app on your phone, whatever way. Okay. That's it. And practice. This is my contact information, but I'd really love to get any sort of questions that you guys have, because we are only 44 minutes in and I talk evidently very quickly. So, and thank you.
You're welcome to put your questions in the chat or raise your hand. Sarah's got her hand up, so we're going to allow her to talk.
This was fabulous.
I aspire to fabulous.
And you definitely exceeded it. I am a known giver on my calls, and I have recognized that during my discovery calls, I end up giving them so much stuff for free that there's no need for them to actually schedule any work with me for 2-3 months, because I've given them the next however many tasks to do to fix their content.
Oh, okay.
This is where I struggle, because by default, when we start doing the discovery questions, we start getting into what their products are, what they're offering, what their services are, what they're helping their clients achieve. What strategies would you recommend to not head into the, here you go, have this for free mode in there? Is there any tip or trick to staying true? I like that you mentioned don't go into slides until after that point, because that I can definitely see that boundary.
Yeah.
because I almost feel like I can't do free calls, and because I give it away no matter what, but people pull their nose up at that too, even if it's a low cost call.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's kind of two ways to approach it. The first way is just holding yourself accountable to the discovery portion and say, like, I'm trying to get as much information about you, your goals, and really why you're having this conversation with me in the first place. And then I want to make sure that I'm able to share with you, all the great things that I do. And that's when you share slides, that's when you share that sort of thing. And what I would do is actually have it in slides. That way it holds you accountable to the words on the page, and you're not just inadvertently giving them all this free stuff. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so that would be one piece that I would say. The other piece that you could do is, and this is more on like this is like a service side, is I know people who will basically say, I will create a plan for you and I'm going to charge you for the plan. But if you don't want to go through the plan, then you're gonna buy the plan, and you can actually, like, you can do it with someone else or do it with another service, or that can go towards my retainer fee or whatever it is. I don't know much about your service, so I can't,
Yep.
but that's another piece that you can do. But I would just say, this sounds really like sadistic, but I don't have one with me. I do things like I snap myself. I talk a lot, so I'll like snap myself to slow myself down. I do physical things
Yes.
that break habits.
Yep. I have.
And that's been helpful for me. Like I will be like, okay, we're getting into like the area. So I'll just sit here and I do it, under a table if I'm in person, or I'll do it, not obviously on camera. But that gets me back to myself, and that just centers me so that I'm not just, giving them all this stuff.
Okay.
That's
I
been,
love,
yeah, that's been really helpful, like
I love
weirdly
that.
helpful.
And then just one more idea that I've been dabbling with is creating almost like a free training, like a 30-minute,
Yeah.
where I kind of do that preliminary stuff. So then they go through that first, and then we have the discovery call ultimately, where it's literally just the questions, and let's get into that. And what do you want to do next is really
Yeah.
what it amounts to. Is that
Absolutely. And that's, yeah, I was going to say, and that's like a pretty like tried and true sales funnel that people follow, especially if you do any sort of marketing or that sort of thing. Where it's like giving a little bit for free, and then you say, like, if you're interested in learning more, this is the next step is, and that way you're building your email, you're building out your email list where you can reach out to them, and you're also, saving yourself a little bit of like the hamster wheel.
okay? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go, okay. Jean, I will send the slides. And then Manoj, I'm assuming that's how you say your name. I'm sorry if that's incorrect. What is your approach to determining if the person you are meeting with is the final decision maker and contract signer versus a key opinion leader and influencer? So I have there's a great way to do this. Asking. So that would be one, is just say, explain to me your process, your decision-making process. And it could be, well, we have an entire committee that's making this decision. But ultimately it's my decision, in which case, then, you're talking to the right person. And then a lot of people that I know, actually, especially with like enterprise software, they're actually getting more success doing more of like a bottoms up approach, where they're hanging out with like an engineering manager, and then they get them bought in, and then they kind of move up the ranks, as opposed to start way at the top because they can't get to the top. There's pros and cons to both. But just asking is the best way. The other thing that I will say to this, and the best way to get a really honest answer, is figure out what is the most similar either product, software, or like system, or I guess service that they have purchased in the past, and ask them what that process was. Because what they're going to do is they're going to be totally honest with you, because their guard is going to come down, and they're going to say like, oh, they're not even asking me about, about them. They're just asking me about our process with another marketing agency. And then they're going to say, oh, well, first they talked to Jean, then they actually met with Jean, Louis, and Lauren, and then that's when it went up to Carrie. Or that's when it went, and then you've written down all those names, and you know that that's the process that you need to follow. Okay, Carlos, when dealing with objections, is there a framework you use? There are lots of frameworks that you can follow. I'm trying to think about, I'm looking, this is all books. So I'm trying to see if I have one that's actually close by that I actually like. I don't know what it's called. I know that there's like a fancy name for it, but the approach where you ask them, you dig into the objection, they say, well, it's cost. And then you say, okay, so if cost was not an issue, then today you would be purchasing this product or this service or what I have. And then they say yes or no. So you just basically separate out those objections, and then you handle them one by one. And then what you'll probably do is get to like the real objection, which is either they don't believe that your product, service, or software is going to help, in which case you got to get back to square one, which is fine. That's just more discovery. Or they can't make the decision, in which case you got to say, that's when you want to ask, okay, let's take a step back. How did you guys get started with this sort of ads? How did you guys, I know that you guys are working with Deloitte on this change management process. Walk me through that procurement process. Do you offer sales training? Yes, I do sales training. And then what books have you read impacted your sales career the most? Well, that's great. I really so for those of you guys who have longer sales cycles, Medic is a wonderful, this is a sales process. It's like a checkbox, but it's a really good framework. So I like Medic, and it sounds silly, but Dale Carnegie wrote a book in 1945 called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I swear that it's the best sales book that's ever been written. And the TLDR there is just ask people about themselves and they'll talk. Let's see. I have a product-based business and mostly sell online. Can I implement these steps into my website in any way? Yes, that is a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think like the approach of really understanding, I could probably stop sharing my screen. Actually, let me see this. The use cases. So your product probably solves something, but it also probably solves like maybe 2 or 3 things. So really understanding what those use cases are and then creating like a case study or a narrative around that is really helpful. And then having that on your website, absolutely, like that will absolutely help you. I also think that businesses now, especially product-based businesses, that ask you questions when you get into it. So there are a couple of businesses that I have like a subscription to that will ask me a bunch of questions. That's their discovery, and then make recommendations based on that. And like, the recommendations are probably the same product, but it's geared towards the reason why my hair is curly and, they need moisturizing. Whereas, you might actually not have curly hair, but you have dry hair, which also needs moisturizing. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can implement this into your website. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. And then Robert, of course. This info is great. Thank you. Once you're in the door. However, the hardest part is getting a sales lead to meet with you. How do you secure meeting appointments? I love this question. I don't think there is a like one book to read on this or one thing to take away. So I don't do my background is not in, I'm stopping sharing my screen. That way you guys can see my face bigger, I suppose. So I genuinely believe that connecting with someone. So if you have a business, you should always have a wish list of, call it 5 businesses, 5 whales that you would love to sign, sell to, whatever. And you want to like eat, sleep, and breathe those whales to figure out, okay, so what are their drivers? And you don't need to meet these people, or even like you can do research on your own and then just figure out a way to get there. And I'll actually talk to a podcast that I listened to recently. So there is a new movie coming out that's called Lost and Found in Cleveland. It's going to be a holiday movie. And Marissa Guterman, she's a director and she is not from Cleveland, but she loves Cleveland and she lives in Cleveland. I listened to her on a podcast recently, and basically everyone in Hollywood said, you aren't going to make this movie. It's not like a fun movie to make. And Martin Sheen is in the movie and all these incredible people are in the movie. And what she said, and the Jeffrey Stern, who has the podcast, asked the question, well, how did you get this incredible cast if you had no money? And she said, all I did was I sent them emails and I wrote them handwritten letters and I figured out a way to get to them. So I figured out where Martin Sheen has his coffee and I showed up at his coffee place. So this is just to say that I really think at the end of the day, it's you, yourself, and your business selling you yourself to another person and another business. So connect with another person and you're good to go. If you feel like there is going to be some sort of like magic potion, some sort of like AI tool that's going to solve it all, I really don't think there is. I think it's really just figuring out what is going to be the best way to approach someone. And usually like a lot of it is on LinkedIn. And some of it is just like looking into their background. Where did they go to school? What interests do they have? Like right now I'm an angel investor. Well, if you look into my angel investing group, it's actually investing money into women founded businesses. So I have these dudes who reach out to me and ask for $1.5 million for their startup. Well, if they had just looked at like my mission written in my LinkedIn, like it's not in line. Like there's no reason why I would reach back out to them. But if I had a female founder say, hey, I know that you care about female founded businesses, and I feel like I should be doing this because I'm now rambling, but you guys know what I'm saying. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Which part of your sales process do you feel as if you spend the most, which part of your sales process do you feel you spend the most of your time in? It should be discovery. You should be spending your time getting to know them, especially if you guys are founders. Like the discovery piece is everything you're going to need. It's everything that's going to get you better product. It's better product fit. It's everything that's going to get you better feedback. It's everything that's going to make sure that's going to validate your assumptions and your thesis about your product. And yeah, so it's discovery for sure. Any other questions?
Carrie, I had to step away to the restroom. Did you answer Elena's question or circle
Oh,
back to Robert's question?
I did.
Okay.
Did both. I did both.
Amazing.
I think I even rambled on Robert's question.
So efficient.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's efficient. I was rambling. And then is there a link to your training? To this? I don't know. There will be. Is there? I am. I don't know.
I think he means the sales training that you mentioned
Oh.
earlier.
Oh, I do all different types of trainings. So, reach out to me, Carlos. Oh, and I guess this is the next piece. I don't know if I shared this. This is on, it's so funny that this is like on sales and this is, if you guys want to get in touch with me, which I would love to hear from you, this is how you get in touch with me. This is my email, my phone just goes to this phone right here. My website, and then I realized that you guys can't like physically click on your, but I will share this out and it links to my LinkedIn profile. And this is my website. My website is also a website as well. Duh.
Wonderful. I did just put Carrie's email and website in the chat and phone
Oh,
number in case you'd like to
cool.
copy and paste those.
Yeah.
Does anyone
Thank
have any
you.
other questions while we have Carrie on the line? You can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand.
Anyone wanna? Oh, anytime, Sarah. I'm glad.
No?
I'm glad.
In and out in an hour or so.
So
which
good.
is pretty
Efficient,
good.
guys. Efficient. I love it.
It's wonderful. Carrie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Carlos.
Please do reach out to Carrie, hire her for sales training. We're using her for several things. Yeah, we're big fans over here at Jumpstart.
Oh, you guys are sweet.
You'll all receive this recording. You'll all receive the slides. And you'll also receive, as I mentioned, a survey to respond to how you thought the webinar went. I have to do a couple housekeeping notes on what we have coming up. We have more webinars coming the third Wednesday of every month, including Make Strategic Decisions by Using Consumer Research on October 23rd. And we have our quarterly State of AI update on November 13th. You can review our webinars and other events at jumpstartinc.org/events. As I mentioned, we will be sending you an email with a recording of this session, a PDF of the slides, as well as a survey. We appreciate your feedback. It allows us to bring in experts and entrepreneurs to teach valuable lessons. That being said, thank you again, Carrie. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy.